You see the countdown, right?
No.
Oh, you don't? Oh, it's only on my end? And we're live. Jennifer and Lindsay. This is Life Through a Distorted Lens and my first video for the podcast and interview. And I'm so thrilled to start it off with Jennifer herself. Like, beyond thrilled. I don't want to make it all like stereotypical, like, oh, who are you and what do you do? So here, but then again, I just did it by saying that. So
it's okay. I mean, some people might not know who I
exactly.
am. So, it's not like I'm famous or anything. I mean, I'm an artist and I'm a journalist, and I'm a concerned citizen. And I got into this. I've also been an activist, like, for most of my life.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
You know, campaigning for women and children's rights and environmental protections. And so I was working probably 2013, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was in this environmental organization, or closely related to this environmental organization, doing some work for them and stuff. And one of the founders asked me if I would secure some speaking venues for them because they were being blacklisted.
Why?
They were being blacklisted because they acknowledged biological reality. There were some people in the organization identifying as transgender. And they were men, and they wanted to be included in the women's caucus.
This was in 2013?
Yeah, this is 2013.
Damn.
So this is almost 8 years ago now that
I feel so delayed on this because I just kind of realized it all like this past December, which is so recent.
Yeah.
I feel like kind of ashamed. Wow. Like, I don't know. It's like, I don't want to talk over you, but go ahead.
That's okay. So anyway, so that's how I became involved in this issue. And it wasn't like I was like really completely oblivious to it. I had read the Transsexual Empire by Janice Raymond, who's a radical feminist, brilliant radical feminist. And she wrote this book, The Transsexual Empire, back in the 70s, late 70s. Wow. And I got to it in the 80s, early 80s, when I got involved in feminism.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I thought it was just breathtaking and brilliant. And but I had sort of shelved it, you know? I mean, it wasn't really loud in the culture. It wasn't like a really striking issue.
Wait, pause. What made you get involved in feminism at all?
That's a really good question. I mean, I was a voracious reader. I'm an autodidact, so I've always been a voracious reader. And you know, I was in the bookstore one day and started looking at some feminist material, and it just struck my chords. You know,
was it something that was your mom or someone that you were close to that kind of taught that, or kind of encouraged? Just innate.
No.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask all the dumb questions, by the way. I love that approach. Not dumb, but yeah.
And then I got involved in working in domestic violence, and I did that for many years. And it sort of gives you a clue.
Oh yeah.
Into the male psyche. And
good point.
You know, what I was seeing and living, you know, was you know, mirrored in the feminist material that I was reading. And it gave it some sort of form, you know, like a Y, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. So then 2000, you know, fast forward 2013, I was working, you know, doing environmental work and stuff. And I had secured some venues for these people that couldn't speak anywhere else. And the venues were canceled right away, like within days of securing them. Just 1, 2, 3. And I was
Did they give you a reason or anything? Just,
you know, we're not going to be able to do it. That was it.
Cool.
And you know, if there was another reason at this point in time, I don't even remember what it was.
Right.
I just remember that I was like, by the third one, I was really pissed off. First of all,
yeah.
You know, I was really pissed off. I was like, "What are you talking about?" You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that started me on a path. I was like, so how is this happening and why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
You know, usually this much power has money behind it. So I went looking for the money. You know, I went to the massive LGBT NGOs in the United States, Arcus Foundation, and Tim Gill's Gill Foundation.
What does NGO mean?
Non-governmental organization.
Gotcha.
And, you know, I was looking at other LGBT NGOs also and started asking some questions like, when was the T added? Like, I kind of missed that, you know?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I had been involved in the gay community and stuff. I'm bisexual, so, you know, but it just sort of like, whoop, sort of escaped me.
Wow,
You know,
even being involved in it, huh?
You know?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't impacting me so greatly.
Right.
But yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, so, and when did the tea come in? And then I started remembering, oh, Janice Raymond. So I went back to the Janice Raymond store, and I was like, I read it all over again. And I was like, oh, okay, now I'm kind of getting it. You know, it's industry, you know, empire. That's what she was getting at when she wrote the book. Not empire, per se, like a kingdom, but
right,
like an industry.
Lots of money, big money.
And I'm so sorry, my phone is.
Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it at all.
Off, but okay.
It's okay. It's okay. So
you know, I found Arcus and I found Gill Foundation, and I started looking at the money being passed through these organizations. And I was like,
fascinating work, by the way. Your blog writings on the 11thhour.com, I believe that's the URL,
11thhour.com.
was one of the first researcher writings. You're fine. It's okay. It was one of the first things I read about all this, and it blew my mind. So in a sense, I feel like I jumped right into it, and that's kind of what I started saying on my Facebook, and people automatically are like, oh, it's fear-mongering and conspiracy, and especially somehow the George Soros, mentioning him as like that guy. I'm like, but why? So I did my research. I actually asked Reddit, and they were like, I don't know, I think it just sounds so ridiculous that people are like, that's ridiculous. Come on now, really that? I'm like, no, I mean, I also did my research with what you said, and it's like a snowball where there's just so much about all this transgender agenda or movement. There's so many angles that I have found it pretty impossible to just say that one thing that can be palatable to someone who really has no idea. And I feel like the majority of people are clueless on this. So it's like, I'm finding it really hard to like mention anything about this without sounding like a conspiracy nut or whatever. I don't know.
Well, you know, when I first started writing about this, and I published, even when I published in 2018, was the first article that I actually published. I mean, before that, I was on social media and I was sharing information I was finding. But then I wrote the article in 2017, but I didn't get it published until 2018 about the Pritzker family. And, you know, up until that point, I was getting a lot of, oh, this is a conspiracy theory and you should have a tinfoil hat. And even my feminist comrades wouldn't, you know.
Why did they say that? I just wonder why. I guess people want to live in a comfort life where their current life is comfortable, and hearing something that is actually that terrifying, I don't want to know that's not real. I think I'm assuming that's why people do that, because you feel really powerless once you realize that there's all these bigwigs, whatever you want to call them, kind of controlling the world, and it has been horrifying for even, you know, me doing my research. So I get why people do it. It's really unfortunate. I'm gonna assume that's why they say, oh, that's conspiracy, because I want to live my comfortable life where I'm not being impacted by this whatsoever.
That's part of it, but I also think, you know, the propaganda for this has been relentless.
Yeah.
You know, you can really tell
gigantic.
the way that it entered the culture, that it's really been planned.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's in their document.
And I don't.
Yeah, the IGLA. Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want people to think that just because I think it's been planned at a certain level, that I think, as a global structure, that everybody is involved in this at the same level. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that there has been planning, there has been structure, there's certainly political infrastructure, and I think that I prove that in the articles and the blog posts that I write because I include so many links.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so
important, by the way, important to back up what you say with citations, statistics, studies. I mean, isn't that just basic conversational thing? I think that's a huge. I'm like, how do you not see these two sides? One's like, I have all these evidence, biology, and the other's like my feelings, and which, by the way, that does matter. But when you lean on that, I mean, you got to have something grounded and something to back up what you're saying. I mean, I thought that was what everyone understood. I guess not. It's just manipulation across the board. Sorry.
Yeah, so I forgot where I was going.
Sorry. Yeah. Welcome to, I'm like, oh, try to be quiet. Let her talk.
That's okay. Nice to have an exchange.
Yeah. Something, I guess, with the, that it isn't just like everyone involved in it. It is these,
right. So not everybody, that's where my thought was going. Not everybody is involved in this in the same level. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people within the LGBT organizations that really believe this is a very good thing. This is just more progressive. This is a small, tiny population of people. They've been misunderstood. I wouldn't say they're oppressed because they haven't been around.
I know. Exactly.
But certainly people, feel weirdly about them. So they're not accepted readily into society. So people, it's sort of like compassion has been weaponized, through their propaganda. I mean, all the stories have the same tone, even if they don't say the same thing. Like it's
very severe violence, suicide, deaths.
People, the poor children trapped in the wrong body, the poor people that are going to, commit suicide and jump off a bridge if they don't, get tied to the medical industrial complex for the rest of their lives.
I know.
Yeah.
And face more abuse and harm than women. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. Say what now?
What was that?
Hold on. They'll be like, oh, even more so, they face more abuse and harassment or whatever than women. And I'm like, wait, where did you get this from? Like, who told you that? Also, what the hell? I mean, women have been around for how long? And to me, the whole transgender thing seems really relatively new. And I know it's been around for, I don't know how long. I'm just like, I don't know. There's so much insulting comments to be said about, I don't know. They're just shooting themselves in the foot continually.
Let's go back a minute, because I'd like to clarify that, actually.
Yes.
Transgender people, there are no transgender people. There are people that get surgeries, and there are people that take drugs to change their sex characteristics. Because myriad different reasons. Okay?
Yeah.
Gay men want to present as females in the culture because of the homophobia in society that is still very, very much entrenched.
Oh, yeah.
A little less obvious, more underground, but certainly there. Adult men with a fetish. And it hasn't been around that long. It's only been around as long as the medical industrial complex has been able to actually change sex characteristics. So that goes back to like maybe the first one is in the 1930s. The first one in America was the 1950s. Yeah. And then it was called transsexualism. Right?
Which I guess you can't say now. I've heard, I don't know.
Well,
I'm just...
transgender is really just...
Can't say now.
I
of course.
People back to the industry part of this, like where did transgender come from? It sort of fell out of the sky in the culture around the time of like 2013. Suddenly, Laverne Cox was on the cover of Time magazine.
Yeah.
Talking about a tipping point when there was nothing preceding that would warrant a tipping point. A tipping point for what? There's nothing there. An occasional story in Hollywood with a character who thinks they're transgender. But other than that, before that, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, boom, transgender children, trapped in the wrong body, poor transgender people, transgender violence, oppressed minority.
Exactly.
All these messages kept like flooding the culture. I mean, everywhere you went,
Yep.
there it was. And it's still going on.
Yes.
It's
Oh
still
yeah.
going on. We
Nonstop.
had 8 years of this nonstop, and it's just like really, it's working on people's compassion. And it's also
Oh yeah.
they've tied it to LGBT.
I know.
Right?
Oh
And
yeah. Yes,
LGBT
they have.
already, that has already cultivated enough acceptance in the society. So just adding the T is kind of like, oh, it's just kind of the same thing. So people don't really think about that.
No.
Think about the information that they're getting. The information
Yeah.
that I have is way behind it's behind a screen. Nobody's looking for that. Nobody's looking for the Pritzker family. Nobody's looking for Martine Rothblatt. Nobody's looking for the bankers that are investing in this. Nobody's looking at the corporations invested in this and why they're invested in this. Who cares? It's progressive.
They don't read beyond the headlines.
LGBT, right? Everybody loves the LGBT now. Right?
Can you explain why it is different? Like, well, how is it not? Like, because I get the classic, you're on the wrong side of history. And I do think it's like people are overcorrecting or trying to fix the people that were on the wrong side of history for the gay rights movement and whatnot. And I read a wonderful blog post about the differences. And yeah.
And I'm really, really glad you asked it because, nobody asked this question. Why was it added? And why is it not good like LGBT?
Yeah.
Why isn't it not LGB? It's just another oppressed minority. Well, no, it's not, actually. LGB, lesbian, gay, bisexual people, are just same-sex attracted. They are attracted to the same sex. So now in order to have this same-sex attraction, you have to have sex, sexual embodiment, right? Now you add transgender, and what they're doing with this is they are trying to break the boundary between male and female, and to put sex on a spectrum for profit by creating a multiplicity of identities.
I'm special.
Okay?
Identities.
Transgenderism, a rebranding of transsexualism. So transsexualism really is a fetish of adult men. Now, a fetish is a sexual obsession with an object that usually progresses through your life. And the object in transsexualism is female biology. Having that as your own, as a man. That's what actually gets you off. So this is a fetish of adult men. And this has now been added to the LGB, along with transvesticism, other fetishes, cross-dressing, blah, blah, blah. And intersex conditions, which is a medical condition, disorder of sexual development, again, used as basically a Trojan horse to support the idea of sex on a spectrum.
Right.
This is what they're trying to do. And when I say they, these people have names. First and foremost would be Martine Rothblatt, who is a self-identified transsexual. He's a man. He thinks he's a woman, or he identifies as a woman. He thinks that's okay. He walks around with women's body parts as his own, breasts, and, I believe he's had full, reconstructive surgery on his genitalia. Doesn't make him any less than a man, still man.
Yep.
And he's also considers himself a transhumanist, which is anything beyond human sexual dimorphism, basically. Once you get in there and you start messing with the human body, augmenting it in different ways, you're moving towards transhumanism.
So robot, like what is it called? Partial.
Has made a robot of his wife, a replica of his wife, to look just like her.
Is she still alive? Like she knows this? He did that.
Yeah.
Does it live with him? It's just confusing to me.
And he's made a robot of her, which he has, put her consciousness inside the robot to his mind. Okay, so he has instilled and wants to instill her total personality into this robot eventually.
Why is this good? Why is this?
42,
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
And now this guy, and he's also worked on the Human Genome Project. He's invented satellite radio.
That's right.
Satellite radio.
Yeah.
He's worked for NASA. He's worked on the Human Genome Project. So many things this guy has done. And he
which you've written about.
So, as a cross-dresser initially, transvestic cross-dresser, was used to get together in clubs. I think this was in the late 80s, with other adult men that used to like to do this, and they got together, lawyers, other autogynephilic men, and he created a legal document, because he's also trained in law. He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
So he created the first legal structure around disembodiment. Because, if you're objectifying somebody else and you want their biology for your own, this is what your big fantasy in life, right? Kind of this obsession.
You want it all.
You have to, disembody your own self, right? And disembody the other person. So it's all about dissociation and disembodiment and creating a normalcy around that, a social normalcy. And what this does within the culture is that it primes people. It cultivates the ground for changing human biology in more extensive ways that they might not be able to roll out without sort of fertilizing the ground first. You don't just throw seeds in the ground. You got to, cultivate that soil first before you want to get real,
well put.
Or vegetables or whatever you're growing in the earth, right? So this is the cultivation period right now. And transgenderism is really the ad campaign for making greater changes to human biology. This man, Martine Rothblatt, has also written a book, Genes Unzipped, which is about the ethical concerns of reproductive technology. So basically, colonizing human sexual reproduction with technology. His ideas are, and he's spelled these ideas right out. I mean, if you read his book, Transgender Transhuman, I mean, he's actually said this. This is his idea. This is his ideology that's playing out in the culture right now. And he's written a blueprint for that. So anybody can read the blueprint. It's right out there. It's not my imagination. It's not a conspiracy. I mean, he's playing this out.
Yeah.
And he's working behind the scenes rather quietly, more quietly than, say, an Arcus character, a John Stryker character of Arcus Foundation, who is blatantly funding every cultural organization in the world that you could possibly imagine with hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions. Churches, sports organizations, police departments, libraries, medical institutions, schools, educational institutions, and on and on and on and on and on. He is the heir to a multi-billion-dollar medical corporation. I think it's worth like $13-15 billion at this point. And he uses his stock from that corporation to fund Arcus Foundation, his LGBT NGO, which then, and with this LGBT NGO, he has created a political infrastructure for driving gender identity ideology through cultural institutions, medical institutions, all our institutions really, and it's global. He funds transgender organizations. Transgender organizations didn't come up until like 2003, 2005, after he initiated Arcus Foundation. He founded Arcus Foundation. So he founded that, I think, in 2000. So, yeah. So, what year did I just say? Like maybe 2005, I think they added the T. I can't remember.
Oh.
But anyway, so whenever they added the T. They added the T, and then came up these transgender organizations. Now, these transgender organizations, and they're global also. I mean, if you look up transgender organizations globally, I mean, there's so many of them, it's insane.
Massive.
Yeah. And what they're doing is they're not trying to help people that identify as transgender or who feel trapped in the wrong body for whatever reason, what they're doing is they're normalizing, depathologizing this fetish of disembodiment. That's their sole purpose. And they send around their minions to schools, to different organizations, to train people that this is a progressive thing. And a lot of people are just buying it. Oh, it's just, it's just this, right?
A lot of people aren't even aware that that's happening. They'll, the kid comes home or,
Exactly.
They're not letting the parents know.
Exactly.
Like, they're like, wait, what? Like, all these things, their whole documents, I've read the IGLYO one. I think I'm saying that right. It's incredible. Like, they're, huh?
I think
Oh, well, it's all out there. What they stand for and their, I don't want to say laws, their agenda. It's unbelievable. I was like, it's all out there. Like, there's a whole document you can look up online. I have all these links in my, I was gonna say show notes, but the, caption thing. It says, like, deliberately get ahead of the government before they figure it out. This is my own words. It's just so sneaky. Like, everything about it is, like, red flag. Like, no sterilization, like, no psychology or figuring out, like, well, what's going on? It's just...
On the one hand, you have... Like, a lot of that stuff is behind the scenes. Like, it's happening sort of underground. They're coming into schools, they're coming into these agencies, they're coming in, and they're, teaching this gender identity ideology as something progressive and good, right? On the other hand, it's way out in the culture. Like, I'm doing this new blog post. I was working on it last night, and it's about how they're glamorizing body dissociation.
Yeah. Oh, Teen Vogue. I remember I got Teen Vogue magazine, and I'm like, what? Like, normalizing porn and sissy stuff, which I'm just like, hold on.
In Cosmopolitan magazine, I think in 2015, they did this whole article on how horrible breast ironing is. It's still happening in the UK, and it's happening in other cultures.
What is breast ironing?
Breast ironing. They actually iron the breast, to flatten it.
I heard... Like, with what?
I think they use stones. I don't even...
Just like medieval age? Like, currently people are doing this? What? So it's like another form of binding?
Sort of. Yeah. It's flattening out the breast tissue. Oh
my God.
And then in 2016, they did an article for young women on how to bind their breasts safely, as if there was a safe way to bind your breasts.
No, it's horrible. Right? Not good. Bad. I mean, dangerous.
Like Gillette, Nike, Thinks
women's like corporations, Tampax.
Another menstrual corporation, Tomboy X underwear for women, all using women who have chosen to have double mastectomies, to have their healthy breasts amputated, young women. And using them as messages of empowerment. You're choosing this as your own canvas to express yourself, your body.
By removing parts of you that makes you really uncomfortable, like, I mean, okay. A lot of women,
and one of their models for Tomboy X underwear, a beautiful model. She's so pretty. She's so beautiful, and she, she's had her breasts amputated, and she calls herself non-binary, and she's been in Vogue, she's been all over the place. She's presenting as a male,
I thought she's non-binary.
Pictures that
can you be both?
Been taken of this woman over the years as she's presenting like this after her breasts amputated willingly, are so beautiful. The pictures are so glamorous. They're so stylized. They're so, when you can put like really good photographs together of fashion and stuff. And
they know what they're doing.
She's posing. She's posing with her girlfriend. Girlfriend is also very beautiful. The clothes that they're wearing are beautiful. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, oh my God, how are young people supposed to resist this?
Exactly.
They've made it so cool and trendy.
Yep.
it's like, wow. And, you know,
God.
kids don't know about, how powerful corporations are and how
Of course
powerful
not.
advertising is.
Not at all.
They don't get it.
No.
They don't know that they're being, cultivated as guinea pigs for, this total
100%.
like eugenics, agenda. It's horrible.
It's sick.
And many of these, young women are, like a lot of the Dissisters have come out as lesbians and said, wow, I got really caught up in this because, I'm a dyke and it's really hard to be a dyke, in the culture. I mean, it's not even as, it's not cool like being a gay dude, you know what I mean? It's different when you're a woman, especially if you present as like anything, if you don't engage in femininity and performing femininity when you're a lesbian
Exactly.
too. Oh, well, you are going to have an awfully hard time in this life, And
Oh, you don't like wearing dresses?
and realizing that, I don't have to go through that if I just identify as a man.
Exactly. What young girl would not do that? I mean, to escape the glares of young men or older men, everyone goes through that phase of being uncomfortable with your body. It's just a part of growing into yourself and becoming a male or a female. I just think it's an escape from uncomfort.
Role models anymore, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's like, everybody's turning queer now. Queer is the new gay,
Yeah. Yeah.
So not.
Yeah, it gets you so much attention. Why would you not do this as a young person?
Body is so much cooler than actually being a sex and being attracted to the same sex.
Exactly. If you're a young person, of course, why would you not want to follow the trend and something that gives you an immediate, I just imagine like a young boy or girl, let's say boy for this, that they're like a really, nerdy, awkward, shy. And then you see this thing that you can do or outlet or whatever, where you get immediate attention, either from, a lot of females. Like, why would you not do it? It just seems like such an, it just seems so disingenuous. Like, it's like a cop out of your natural form of what should have just happened. Like let hormones flow.
Now we're getting back to the gender and the identity part of this, right?
Yeah.
We have to look at the corporate structure behind. The propaganda for this has been relentless. It's been The strategy has been brilliant. The tactics have been
so smart
for what they're trying to accomplish, and it's working. It's working on young minds that are not formed. They're on the computers. They're away from their families. They're involved in technology, tech. And they're getting messages on this computer that are telling them that this is really good. This is really positive. Like, listen to what I was just telling you. The corporatization, the glamorization of body dissociation in the culture, in the broader culture, in the mainstream culture. It's being glamorized. It's being normalized. You have a young man, he's probably gay, Jazz Jennings. He liked frilly things in the color pink. So his parents said, hey, whoa, you must be a girl, And he got a lot of feedback for this, and he got on TV when he was just a young boy, And, now he's like, I don't know, maybe he's in his 20s, maybe he's 20 now. Kind of genitalia operated on 3 times. This has been made into a reality TV show. The complications of his surgeries. His penis goodbye party was on.
Yeah, with the cake and yay.
Yeah, like celebrating, laughter, ha ha ha. Had a penis cake and everything.
Acceptance, yay, affirmation.
Yeah, you can't go.
Empowering.
Exactly. You can't go to a TV program now, hardly, and not have a trans character in there. Even children's programming has.
Yeah, that's happening currently, slowly, with a lot of stuff, for sure. Cartoons, yeah.
And this is all normalizing body dissociation. It's all fertilizing the ground for more augmentation of humanity. And a desexing. Because eventually what they're
Oh, yeah.
looking towards, and I say they, and I go back to Martin Rothblatt because it's his ideology and it is his blueprint. I mean, if you read his book, Transgender to Transhuman, again, what you're going to find is absolutely everything that's going down in the culture right now.
I believe it.
And he's he's very, very wealthy. He's been the owner of a massive biopharmaceutical corporation. He's involved in, the LGBT at the highest echelons, outright international. He does all these conferences. He did a conference at Victoria of British Columbia in Canada that was put on by the trans chair there, the trans chair position. I forget the name of the person, but they're also identify as transgender. And that position was created by Jennifer Pritzker. We can talk about him. But Martin Rothblatt was there in 2016 talking about how tech transhumanists have to create an organization like WPATH, World Professional Association of Transgender Health. They have to create that for transhumanists, that same kind of organization that's come up for tech transgenders in order to make this transition in the culture. So what we're looking at here is the colonization of human sex, human biology, right? And basically, this is happening because we've reached peak capitalism. Capitalism has nothing left to exploit that it hasn't already destroyed, of the natural world. We're what's left. And they're coming for us. They really are.
I'm uncomfortable. Oh, this is so terrifying. It's horrifying. But hey, you just deal with it. As a human, you deal with uncomfort. People. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay.
I was pointing out it's okay to feel uncomfortable. This whole thing is like removing the uncomfort and affirming what you think whatever. It's ridiculous. You need to go through hardships.
So behind these people, Jennifer Pritzker's a man who identified as a woman when he turned in his 60s, right? Before that, he was in the armed forces. I think he was a colonel, married, several children, part of the wealthiest family in the United States, the Pritzker family, billionaires, $29 billion they're worth. And he decides one day that he's a woman, starts going to all these business meetings and meeting all these other, hangs out with all these other rich people and these philanthropists and stuff, and, tells them he's a woman now, and, sends out a memo, basically, I'm a woman now, so, address me like that, whatever that means. Shows up in a dress and pearls, and, everybody goes along with this. How much money does this guy say? You can say you're the second coming, and they're going to go with it, right? Got $29 billion in the bank, honey.
Yeah.
Okay, it's over.
Exactly.
Right?
Money talks.
So so then he, again, like Arcus Foundation, like John Stryker behind Arcus Foundation, also connected to a medical corporation. His whole family is way invested in the medical industrial complex. I mean, massive, billions of dollars, right? Invested in the medical industrial complex at so many levels. And if you want to check that out, you can go to my blog, and the article is in the back of the blog.
Absolutely.
In the Federalist, who's institutionalizing transgender ideology, right?
Yeah.
So he starts funding, all these institutions, setting up all these sexual centers, sexuality centers, helped John Bonham, Mark S. Bonham up in Canada, start the sexuality center up there. Also breaking down sexual dimorphism, sends around his minions to say that sex doesn't exist, sexual dimorphism doesn't exist, right?
What is sexual dimorphism? Can you define that?
Male and female procreation.
Yep.
And again, they're trying to take that away from humanity and make it, through tech, and it's already underway. I mean, through surrogacy, through transplanted uteruses and transplanted wombs and sperm and eggs and synthetic breast milk, synthetic blood,
Oh.
penises for women and neovages for men.
But the success rate on these surgeries and everything that you're pretty much talking about, from what I've read, is pretty effing low. Like phalloplasty is like no one's talking about that. Of course not. I mean, the truth is being suppressed everywhere. There's the parallels with Scientology and this whole movement is incredible.
It's very cult-like.
Yeah, I just want to.
Very cult-like.
Oh, it's so cold. Not only do they mute people's voices that are just asking questions, they're aggressive and they really like harass. They threaten you and they want you to feel oh no, and it's just
Those would be the cult
it's like
members, right? They keep you in line, right?
Yeah.
Keep you glued in. However, the difference between this cult and any other cult is there is no charismatic leader here. There is no real leader.
Exactly. Who is the leader? Like what? How strange.
Rothblatt, or it's Jennifer Pritzker, or it's Tim Gill, or it's this one or it's that one. No, not really. Not really.
Blindly to the blind.
The market, because this is being instilled, entrenched in the market right now, and everybody is buying it and everybody is selling it. So now it just goes through the culture. It would be sort of like what we're up against here now is trying to get this out of the market, expose this so that people aren't buying into it. But it's very, very hard because they already had the structure in place before they rolled it out in the culture. The political infrastructure, the market infrastructure to get it through the market. I mean, Arcus is having these meetings with all these big powerhouse corporations and going, hey, Arcus Foundation, John Stryker, having all these meetings with all these, rich people, basically, behind these mega corporations and saying, hey, this is why you need LGBT, this is why you need the T in your, organizations. Gender identity. Gender identity is inclusive of the T, right? We don't have to talk about transgenderism. What is that really? We don't really want to break that down. So we just say gender identity. It's kind of smooth, you know what I mean? It's much smoother than transgenderism, which sort of leaps off of transsexualism. And, somebody might question, like, what the hell is that? Why are you adding that? Or, what's going on? Gender identity covers the whole spectrum, right? You don't really have to talk about it. Don't worry, it's just part of the LGB. Yeah? And now you have like these major corporations, major banks, all invested in gender identity. Why? Where did this come from? What's the issue? Why are you interested as a corporation, as a global bank, as a global media platform, as a global tax consulting house? Why are these humongous structures involved in people's gender identity? I mean, come on. You think somebody would ask along the way. Do you know what I mean?
They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to. Bigot, transphobe, fired, whatever. That shit is erased. Not allowed.
Right.
Because it exposes it. You're not allowed to. If you can't have a discussion, you can't have compromise. That's also in the IGLY document. Something about compromise. Be wary of it. Like, oh, I wonder why. Come on.
Well, it goes back to the beginning here of how I even got involved in this, right? The censorship. Shut down. You cannot discuss this. You can't discuss this. You can't even have an alternate opinion. It wasn't like I was setting up venues for these people to talk about gender identity. They were going to talk about the environment. Nope. Because you've acknowledged biological reality, you will now have 0 platforms. We will make sure of that, right? And pretty much that's why information can't get out, because the minute somebody critiques this, they cut your legs off.
Yeah.
People have been, Megan Murphy, feminist, journalist, wonderful, has spoken out about this, said a man can't be a woman on Twitter, boom, gone.
Did you know who did that? Apparently the got her blocked. I actually don't want to mention the name. I'll tell you later. But yeah, women, I mean, people aren't realizing this either, because a lot of people just aren't on Twitter or in the internet, just on it. Women are being silenced like massively. Report, fuck you, turf message from some dude. He just went on a rampage. Twitter wrote back and was like, we don't see anything wrong with this. Like, it's just fine. I mean, I already knew they weren't going to do anything. I mean, yeah, for just talking about biology and stating the facts, like a man can't become a woman, or just not even necessarily that, but just asking questions, or misgendering. Like, what? I'm not going to lie to you or lie for you. I live in reality. Like, that's fine if you want to do that, but once you start imposing your ideas on me and how I'm supposed to think, I mean, that's huge. That's a massive problem. It's crazy how people are ignoring this and being like, well, they have feelings and suicides and like all these crazy statistics where I'm like, okay, it's just such like the whole repeated cult think that is regurgitated with each TRA, trans right activist, is the same. It's like the same like 5 things. I wish I should write that down at this point. Suicide, if they don't get this surgery, they'll commit suicide. They get harassed and blah, blah, blah. I just don't understand why women are the ones that are supposed to protect the men that are being harassed, say, in their bathrooms. Oh, I have so much to say. Like, why are they, I already know why. I'm just going to play along here. Why are the men that are in dresses encroaching in on women's bathrooms and women's spaces? Like, why would they not create their own space? They don't. It took me, actually, Artie Morty mentioned this. I realized it. I was like, oh my God, he's right.
Gender identity activists are trying to deconstruct sex, and so they're trying to deconstruct environments based on sex, right? Segregated by sex. And yet, if they actually are able to accomplish that, then men are going to be in the women's room, because the women's room is going to be gender neutral, right? So there's going to be men in there. So the men that you're trying to purportedly save yourself from getting, from acts of violence from them, that's why you're in the women's room, right? So if the women's room is deconstructed and men are in there, then you're going to have the same problem you had in the men's room, right?
Of course. Yeah, I know. I've thought that too. I'm like, what?
But nobody's able to have a conversation like that with any, TRAs.
Well, if they have their own third space, then then they won't be able to have the affirmation of them being in the women's bathroom, because that's another step in their scavenger hunt of what it is to be a woman. Like, that's an affirmation. Like, oh, yes, I'm being recognized as a woman. I get to go in your woman's space and steal your tampons. And
then you would think that they wouldn't be fighting really for, gender neutral bathrooms. North Carolina was subject to financial threat, like outstanding financial threat, if they didn't get on board with bathrooms, making them gender neutral in the schools, right?
So nice. Threatening. Very, very, very nice.
It doesn't really make any sense.
No, of course not.
It's just that it's been, it's repeated so often. I mean, this is what advertising is. They repeat the same thing over and over and over again. They cultivate your desire, or they cultivate, in this situation, they cultivate compassion, So you're not really thinking, it's in there. It's just going on and on and on, and it's like, it's advertising. It's advertising for the deconstruction of sexual dimorphism. I
should rewatch Mad Men. I think it'd be a good thing.
And it does sound crazy. I mean, it sounds crazy even as I say it out loud, but that's all there. It's all proof. It's
100%.
Not even hidden. It's just that people aren't looking for it. That's the whole thing.
Exactly. It really is all out there. 100%. It's incredible. You would think they would, I guess, find a way to not put that out there, but I'm like, I don't even think the trans rights activists. Of course, I think the majority of them have not even read these documents or even really followed up and done their own research on what they're advocating for. Like, are you aware of what you're like uplifting and whose rights you're taking away? And like, no one cares about women. Like, no one asked us, how do you feel about this? Of course not, because then they wouldn't get their way. It's insanity.
The illusion. People like to, like you had said earlier, people close their eyes because it's more comfortable. And I think that people really think that, they want to continue to believe that we live in a democracy. still.
Mm.
And in fact, we do not. I mean, this is being driven by big, big money all through the culture. And
Yep.
John Stryker of Arcus Foundation, I mean, he was trained as an architect, so his architect degree has really served him in building the political infrastructure for this Goliath. And he's come right out and said, you don't get on board with gender identity ideology, woo, there goes your money. So this
Yeah.
here, this hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars, is contingent upon you getting on board with this program.
Yikes.
And this is a pharma program. It's it's big pharma behind this. There's money in surgeries. There's money in the drugs. I mean, it's not just cross-sex hormones. It's
big money.
It's pain medications. It's anti-rejection medications. It's all sorts of medications. Plus the surgeries, plus any complications that come up. I mean, you're doing to a human body what shouldn't be done, and the human body is going to resist that. So
of course, dramatic.
Dramatic you're really tied to the medical industrial complex for the rest of your life. Bonanza.
I know, people don't see it like that.
This is either in tech, high tech, AI, big pharma, or banking.
Yeah.
All the big kahunas behind this thing, driving it, the drivers,
Of course. Yeah, the amount of GoFundMes for top surgery, chopping off healthy breasts. Today I checked it. It was somewhere 37,000.
Yeah, last I looked at it.
I'm just like, holy hell.
Wow, it's gone up a couple of thousand.
Of course. Of course, yeah. And they're not cheap surgeries, like 10 grand. I mean, it's just incredible. It's like, one of the stories like, oh, I've known this since I was young. It's like, dude, you're like 14, 16. And you haven't even fully grown your brain. Like, you haven't lived enough life to really know what you want. You're doing something that is irreversible. Like, and no one's, the medical, people are not going to tell them the really, the side effects that can happen, or this is not going to necessarily fix your dysphoria. They're not going to say any of that. Of course not. They would lose a patient.
And what if you're a parent, out of the blue, your kid comes home and says, I'm trans. I'm the opposite sex. I want cross-sex hormones. I want to do this. I want to do that. Or maybe they start with a haircut, or growing your hair out, or some, other stereotype, right?
Yeah.
And you just go along with it because they're just being a teenager, right?
Right, of course.
You don't know the extent of this online. You have no idea. You're just a parent. You're out there in the world. You're working. You're trying to keep your family together. You're cooking. You're cleaning. You're driving
100%.
Everybody everywhere, whatever. And then this starts to escalate,
like crazy.
Maybe they get cross-sex hormones on the internet, or they go to Planned Parenthood by themselves and they get cross-sex hormones, right?
Or you go to websites where they're taught how to lie to the clinicians or whoever on how to manipulate and get your way, and grooming. This is so much grooming.
Second visit, they'll give you cross-sex hormones.
Oh yeah, it's
well,
you don't
even have to go through any procedure. You're a young person.
No, of course not. That's in their guidelines. That's not a thing. Don't do that. Don't ask questions.
What's been their their whole reason for being is reproduction, right? Female reproduction. That's the field that they've been involved in for all these years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, female reproduction.
Yeah, exactly. Man, you're like hitting all the questions I even had. Yeah, people, I guess that's stupid. Not stupid, but it's like people who agree with this ideology, what are they really losing? Like, why not? I mean, it's just progressive. And I mean, you've already covered some of that, but what are they losing?
Because they don't have the information that we have. Once you start,
yeah.
You look at the backdrop. I mean, all the stuff is there, but again, people aren't looking for it, so they don't really see what's going on. They just see the narrative of this. So what's the big deal? A few men in women's sports, no big deal.
Exactly.
A few women, a few men dressing as women going to work at Goldman Sachs. What's the big deal? We don't have a big deal with that. They don't know looking at the big, broad picture.
Not at all.
This is, infiltrated the culture and what it actually means. Who is behind it? What's the ideology that they're driving? How is it connected to surrogacy? The technological reproduction, the future of technological reproduction, breaking down sexual dimorphism. They're not after gender. They're after sex, honey. Gender is stereotypes. They don't give a crap about somebody's identity and their, how they're going to express their stereotypes, that they like.
Exactly.
They
Blatant stereotypes.
They are after sex, human sex. It is clear as day to me. Clear as absolute day.
100%. And I think a lot of people are not going to be put in these situations where it would deeply affect them, like women's prison or, if you don't have a child, just the lack of ability to think outside of yourself. And I don't know, man.
Oh, so I was talking about the parents, right? So, you're a parent and your kid comes home and, they've gotten cross-sex hormones and their voice starts to change and you're like, holy hell, what are we going to do, right? You take them to to see a shrink, right? The shrink says, oh, you better get over yourself because this is a thing. And your child is actually now a boy. This is your male child and you better get over it. You bigot. Right? And then you go to another psychiatrist because you don't like that answer, right? You're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then, and then the other psychiatrist says, transgender is really a thing. Your kid's really the other sex now, so you better get used to it, right? And then you take him to your general practitioner, and the general practitioner says, give him these cross-sex hormones, right? Give your daughter these cross-sex hormones, and you'll all live happily ever after with him.
God, it's so tragic.
And the school is like, oh yeah. Your child has been a boy now. Your girl child has been a boy now for the past year. We just didn't want to tell you about it because they didn't want us to, right? They don't even tell you. They don't inform you.
Of course not.
And so every place that you go to try and get help for this situation, they're telling you you're crazy. And in the culture, it's being celebrated and normalized. Stars. Charlize Theron has a transgender child. Angelina Jolie, transgender child. These transgender children are falling off of trees. They're so prolific. You didn't hear anything about this. You didn't hear about kids jumping off again, wanting to jump off the bridge because they couldn't be, they were in the wrong body. It's so ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? It's so.
Oh, of course I know what you mean. 100%.
And people are believing it. It's just, wow. It's so on a bad day it's really frightening.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that
how well it's working.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that I'm definitely not going to stop fighting for and being involved in because women fucking matter. It's just crazy. Like mentions of people feeling like, oh, back to the suffragette stuff. Here we go, back to square one. And it really feels like that. Not that I was alive for any of that, but I mean, come on, we're fighting for our spaces and our rights here again.
You're fighting for your biology.
Yeah.
Your space. You're fighting for your sex, honey.
Yes.
For your, for your womanhood. You're fighting, and you better hold on tight, baby, because they are coming for it. They really are.
I know they are.
Womanhood. That's why you can't talk about womanhood anymore. You can't talk about women's biology. You can talk
pregnant or breastfeeding.
You can't talk about womanhood because womanhood is being colonized.
Yeah. God almighty. Yep. Wow. Yep. I'm going through all my questions. Oh God. But I'm just at what point, that whole, I think it was Australian women's bathhouse thing yesterday or this week, being all let's accept trans-identifying males into the space. And it's so insulting. And it was really amazing to see the majority of the comments being women this is ridiculous, how insulting, etc. So I'm at what point can all these institutions or whatever fight against the general public? How can this stick is what I'm saying. When is this going to backfire? And can it backfire? How can something like this crazy thought and cult think stick when the majority of people are what are you talking about? This is insane. How can it stick? I just don't understand that. I mean, I don't know. Does that make sense? Was that a question?
It's so rife through everything, and the threat is so pronounced I mean,
Yeah.
our speech is really circling the drain in America right now. I mean, it's not like we ever had like completely free speech, but every
Right.
year it is getting worse and worse and worse. And the way it presents around this issue, particularly, is really so alarming. So many
100%.
people have been deplatformed. Comedians can't make jokes. Actors
Oh.
can't act if they're not, transgender. I mean, imagine, we're going to have a rapist in a movie, but we can't really have, anybody else except a rapist play this role.
Oh my God. That's so horrifying. Oh.
I mean,
Oh my God.
That's insanity.
Of course. Of course. 100%.
But there's threat at every place you turn, and it's like it doesn't have to be. How shall I say? Like people might not be able to define it, but they know it's there. They feel it, because it's in the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
atmosphere. It's everywhere you go. And if you try to discuss this in any kind of critical way, you are framed as a horrible, hateful, bigot, scum of the earth. We want nothing to do with you. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
And if you're picking on other people, being woke, being compassionate towards everybody right now is very, very, it makes us feel very virtuous without really having to do anything,
Exactly.
life.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah. It doesn't make
You're not investing any real action to do anything.
Yeah.
Except point the finger at somebody else and say how bad they are.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes them feel good. Like, oh, look, I'm on the internet advocating for this really minority group. Look at how good I am. Look, I'm a good human. I'm a good, oh God, and just ignoring the people that you are affecting by uplifting that. Completely ignoring, like not even listening to, not taking into account, not having discussions, like we've said. I'm just like, it's crazy how blind people are and how they'll just go along with it.
I wrote a blog post recently about how, the shame of being homosexual has caused it has really caused like so much brutal suffering. And and we're creating tyrants, like the prey is basically turning into the hunter now,
Yes. Yep, there was a great quote about that I've read recently. The people that were too weak to fight the monsters become like the monsters that they were too weak to fight.
Exactly.
I was like, oh, it's so true.
They're getting payback, because they have power.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're not probably thinking in terms of, oh, now I'm going to get back at you. But it's like, it's an internal psychological process. You know what I mean? You've been beaten down, you've been told you're dirt, you're not like other people, you're shamed for something so intimate like your sexuality that, wow, And you can say the same thing about, transsexuals, like why shame them? You know what I mean? We live in a dissociating society, in America, everything is cordoned off from everything else, we're more invested in machines and technology than we are with the natural world or each other at this point. I mean, maximum security prisoners have more time outside than most children. Yeah. So we're dissociating.
I haven't even thought about that.
Develop fetishes and dissociating, sexuality that and objectifies is kind of normal in this completely sick place that we live in, right? However, if you're going to, have a lot of compassion for that and say, oh, okay, well, we'll just accept that now. But, if you're going to accept that, then you have to accept, you have to normalize it, first of all, if you're going to accept it. You have to normalize it in the culture, right? And now I have to be a participant. Other people have to be a participant in your sexuality.
Yeah.
You
have to
affirm.
And
if you do it for one fetish, then you have to do it for another. I mean, Pride has exploded. Pride Parade has exploded into, a fetish circus, basically.
Yep.
People with ball gags and
walking out there,
and chains and no clothes or leather thongs, chains.
Very private stuff. To me, that stuff is very private and intimate, and just
Exactly. So, but bringing this into the culture, all this, like this whole freak show, this kink show, bringing all this into the
Yeah.
culture makes everybody a participant in objectification, sexualizing other people, disembodiment, subordination, domination as normal. These things now are normalized in the culture. And this is what we're doing. And this takes away any of our ability to have any private space.
Yes.
Okay, this is really important here. The
Sure.
fact that our private space is already obliterated through big tech, right, and massive surveillance every place we go. Now, at our most intimate level, our most sexual level, this is being imposed upon us. And I really do believe that it's escalating the whole thing because, sexual trauma, it's being part of a sexual act that you don't want to be part of, that you're not consulting to, creates a trauma. It creates a propensity to dissociate, right? And which is also why, they're bringing like drag queens into story hour and getting more, teaching children more and more sexual, intimate stuff because it creates dissociation. So at every level of the culture, we're, being programmed to dissociate more and more and more from the natural world.
They're so dangerous.
From our bodies, from the land, from who we are as sexual beings. So it's all really about, dissociation. That's the whole thing. That's the whole agenda.
Yep. I think it's important to really mention that. 100%.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
And, our personalities, our likes, our dislikes are all being controlled and collected for data mining, for big tech and corporations. This all goes together.
Yeah.
I don't generally speak about it all together because I think that's really overwhelming and people go like their heads explode like, what?
Yeah.
So I just try to, and people really aren't up to that level.
No, yeah.
Yet because they can't even, the corporatism behind this ideology.
It's heavy, and it's heavy. All this is really heavy.
And gender and identity and expressing oneself and da-da-da-da-da. It's marketing. If you have a brand of, say, makeup, right? You have two colors of makeup. You have white foundation for white people, and then you have black foundation for black people, right? You're not going to sell a whole lot of makeup. But now if you have varying shades of brown and beige, and you have all these pinks and roses and for all these white women, right? You're going to sell a whole lot of makeup. It's a spectrum.
It's such a great point. Yep.
If you have a phone, you got a blue phone, you got a black phone. You're not going to sell too many phones, right? But if you got an array of colors, and those colors are really targeted to specific people, specific likes, specific personalities, specific sexes, you're going to be marketing, a lot more phones, right? You're going to be selling a lot more phones, and people are going to be buying your phones, right? This is how the whole LGB came into being corporate identities.
Yeah.
Way back in the 70s and the 80s, when pharma was coming into and colonizing LGB, they turned them into corporate identities because you had most gay people didn't really have the option of go getting a surrogate and go have a baby, right? It was a lot more complicated for gay people to have babies.
Right.
So here you have, two men, especially two men in the same household, big earners, right, with no kids. Woo! Bonanza, and even women, professional women get together, make nice house, this is good, right? Yeah, this is real good because they're not going to have any babies. Yeah, they're going to be out there in the culture spending their money.
God.
So LGBT, that's how they became a corporate identity, right? And then it was like, gay cruises and gay bookstores and gay clubs and gay this and gay towns, Provincetown, Massachusetts, gay town. Oh, yeah. Right?
Money.
Yeah. So this is, so it turns into like a marketing opportunity, right? But if you have LGB and then you have nothing else after that, you have heterosexuals, well, you've really pretty much hit your mark, right? Until you expand that market by bringing in disembodiment.
Yeah. and
Yeah.
having a whole
Yeah.
spectrum.
We have, transgender makeup, we have genderqueer makeup, we have genderqueer clothing, we have transgender, modeling, we have transgender, we
Everything.
have schools that want to be women, we have, cosmetology for men that want to be women, we have transgender clothing. Yeah.
Yeah. What I also notice, obviously, is we don't ever really hear about trans identifying females, so transgender males, like ever. Like, that's also like a huge alarm going on. Like, why is it so heavily focused around the males?
Well, we hear about them. You know when we hear about them? We hear about them when they're having babies.
Oh, stop.
When the women who are identifying as men have babies.
Oh, yes. I thought you meant, okay, yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I remember hearing that story ages or years ago.
No. Yeah.
That Asian woman that became a male cosplayed a male. And also I don't do the whole game of like saying you're what you are. I know some people do, even people that think like us, but I'm like, I think it's just dangerous because it just confuses like your thinking and speaking, and I mean that's all of this is like erasure.
We woke up to, we woke up one day and all the road signs were changed.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just drive anyway.
To go against what you naturally see, even if the man looks pretty convincing. In fact, there was someone, I used to be in the cosplay community. There was a male that, I don't know if they got surgery or whatever, but I saw their photos on Instagram and whatnot, and I was like, what is it about this person? I honestly could not figure it out. This is before I really got into all this research. And I was like, it looked like a woman, but I was like, something's there, my intuitive self was like, I can't figure it out. But then I met them in person, and as soon as they spoke, I was like, oh, it's a dude. Oh my God, that's what it was. I don't know where I was going with that really, but how easy it is to be fooled. I just feel like it's just such a fooling thing. Like,
I mean, and everybody knows this is impossible.
I know.
Everybody really, really knows. I mean, even if they're selling you a bunch of BS, they know.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where babies come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know this. We do. We do know this. Even if you're talking BS, you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we're all going along in this pretend Kafka-esque kind of, matrix. It's insanity. It's insanity.
Do you have anything to add or say on the male versus female brain topic? I know that's kind of a yeah, go ahead. Is that real? And well, it seems to be a thing that they also rely on alongside with the intersex thing.
In the sense that, okay, it's a good question. In the sense that, can a doctor tell the difference between a male brain and a female brain? I don't actually know, to tell you the truth. Right. I mean, I think a female brain is probably smaller in general. I think it probably, it has different hormones, so maybe there's some different things going on there. And I think that cultural stereotypes, are sort of overlaid on biological, should I say, propensities. Like, men are generally bigger and stronger,
right? Yep.
Right? They're going to sort of gravitate towards, jobs potentially in the culture that need muscle.
Right.
They'll be movers, they'll be firemen, they'll be blah, 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 because they have a lot more physical strength. I mean, a woman is really going to have to develop herself in order to, be able to, move furniture as well as a man.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Your average woman, is built for making babies. We're a dimorphic species. This is how we procreate. So our bodies are really geared for that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think cultural stereotypes are sort of overlaid on that, on those biological propensities, but what feminism has tried to do over the years is to, stop the rigidification of that, making them so rigid, you know what I mean? So that people can't move.
Yep.
And also exposing how that sort of making them so rigid serves capitalism, serves society, so that women don't have the same kind of movement as men. They demur to men. They, physically make themselves vulnerable with clothing. Not that they do this to themselves, but the culture, the overlay of these stereotypes on women, so I think that there are, biological propensities,
right.
We are physically different. It matters. It absolutely matters.
Of course, 100%.
It may or may not, steer us in different, directions socially. But there is absolutely a gender system that sorts men and women's, into categories, abilities that they're able to choose in life.
Yeah.
Right. And who they're able to have sex with gracefully without being, targeted. So those, I think, that's basically what I can say about that. I mean, a lot of, there have been scientists, women scientists, I can't think of their name right now.
That's fine.
But have dealt with that, have looked at stereotype behavior and picked it apart and said, and have proved that, basically there isn't a whole lot there, in terms of our abilities,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a interesting topic that I think that there's still a lot of questions to be answered with the whole brain thing. I personally think it's just a bullshit excuse. I wish I had more to say on it, because I think it is a complicated thing, and there's like a lot of, I don't know, Dr. Deborah Stowe's book, she talks a little bit about it, but it is a topic I find fascinating, and I definitely want to research more about it. I don't know everything.
I'm sure we have to talk about those things, you know what I mean? But because, the rigid stereotypes really enforce and how shall I say,
offend or
serve the corporatism.
Yeah, that's true.
They're solidified and they're regurgitated and they're, sent back out to us. Now we have, sex work is empowering.
God. Yeah, can you explain why why is it not empowering?
Your breasts, to express yourself as a man is empowering. Getting a bodice if you're a man and drilling a hole in your body, to have some makeshift, resemblance to a vagina this is empowering. This is brave. This is courageous. So all these sex role stereotypes are now being regurgitated at us, and they're being, they're sent out as empowering now, and the kids are buying it because they don't know any better.
Of course they are. Yeah, they're naive, and you think you grow up trusting the world around you, you would never suspect that you'd be deceived at every corner. Being a young person, and again, I think that parents have no clue. They're not living on Tumblr and Reddit and all these websites or YouTube, where they really have no idea. And even I have not a full grasp on it, because I'm not a teenager living on Tumblr. But man, that stuff is very real.
I mean, we turned off our computers,
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're separating us from real life.
Yes.
They're really taking children away from their parents.
Yes, literally. That is a thing. I don't know if that's a thing that Americans or whatever the clinics are doing here, but I believe it's UK. I don't remember. I think it's UK. If the kid tells whatever clinic, or I don't know what term to call it, that my parent is not affirming me or they're gatekeeping my identity, they'll literally take the kid away from the parent. That's a real thing.
It's actually happening. Yep. I know a couple of
terrifying. As if these people know better than the parents that birthed this child and have raised it. It's crazy. And if the kid's being lied to about all this, of course they'll be like, my parent is actually hate speech and threatening my life and what I am. So it's so twisted.
Well, when you have a family unit where both people have to be out working in order to survive, who's minding the store? Who's minding the children? And who's informing those children? And who's telling the stories of those children? And technology, in terms of separating us as communities, I mean, I have family here, I have family there, I have a best friend in another state and a best friend in another state. You know, I have all these people that I know all over the world. But in terms of like right in my own community to go out and have a cup of soup with somebody, that's a little rough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're in a,
Yep.
you know, in a major city, you know, you got to plan this, right?
Yeah.
You got to plan this
Yeah.
little cup of soup, right, in advance, like a couple of weeks, really. And then you go and you haven't seen this person in a couple of weeks because it's really hard to plan shit,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So then you get together and you have a cup of soup, right? And you're in a restaurant really crowded and you start throwing your life up on each other because you haven't seen each other in a couple of months, right? So you throw your life up on each other, right? And then you go home. And this is supposed to be community?
No.
I don't think so. Community is people who know who you are, people that know what you smell like, people that know what you like, what you don't like, what your little triggers are, people that know what your favorite color is, what your favorite ice cream. Ask my friend, what is my favorite ice cream? Any one of my friends, none of them would be able to tell you. I don't think anybody in my family would be able to tell you what my favorite ice cream is. That is not community. We are separated by miles. We're separated by technology. We're separated from our land. And this is dissociating. This is disembodiment, you know. This is where all this is going. And it's happening because of capital, because the market runs itself now. This is, it's totalitarian.
Yes.
The market.
Yay, that is actually 100% yes.
It just goes. It's like a shark looking for a meal. It just goes. You know?
And the whole COVID thing is only working in its favor, or only working out for them. And I don't even know what. I'm like, it seems like it's so planned at this point. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a real thing, but wow, is it convenient for, again, all this transgender stuff I've noticed while being in lockdown, maybe because I am in lockdown, but I'm also like, wow, this is going to work in their favor like crazy because these children are indoors and on the computer even more and not going out and doing whatever. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but I'm like, this is only going to work in their favor to have more kids follow suit and also manipulate everyone's minds about it and push. It's just a tool, you know, puppet. It's terrifying.
That's capitalism.
My God.
You know, every new tragedy, every new crisis is really utilized.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I mean, can the wealthy get any more wealthy?
Apparently that's all they want to do is get more wealthy, which I don't understand. I mean, you know, take it all. I'm a man and I have man power. Let me also take woman power. That's what I feel like it is. It's like, why not? Because I can. I don't know. Yeah, like, well, what can we do to protect ourselves with this? Like, what can we do?
Well,
shitty question, I know. It's like,
you know, for me, it's, you know, resistance. Is vital.
100%.
Especially if you're going to take in the horrors of what actually are. You have to be resisting it in some way in order to ameliorate the horror, the devastation, and the terror that amounts when you're looking at something so gargantuan. You know, that is also available to us, you know, to be able to see so many crises and so much horror at one time because of technology, right? We weren't built for this. We're built for communities, for tribes. You know, we're not built for seeing what all these other tribes are doing, what all this shit that they're going through. Great point. Right? Yes. We're built for communities, smaller communities, right? So here we are looking at the world going like, holy shit. Well, we have to ameliorate that for ourselves, you know, and for our community, you know, so we have to be resisting it in our communities, you know, where it's happening. Mothers are resisting, fathers are resisting. They're going to their school boards. They're going, hell no, we ain't having it. We're going to form a little organization here. And, you know, maybe they're not going to get very far, but maybe they're only going to inspire somebody else to do that. And then somebody else and somebody else in their communities. And once we have, you know, more and more people doing that, then things will start to change.
Make ripples.
But you have to take up their piece. This is the most vital thing. You have to take up your piece. How small it is, it doesn't matter. It matters that you're taking something up. If you have money and nobody else has money that's working on this front, send them money.
You know? The ones that can, like you and I.
There are journalists out there. There are parents out there, foundations out there working towards, changing laws. Wolf Organization is a feminist organization in the United States that is doing so much.
Mhm.
They're carrying a heavy load. They need money. Send them money.
Yes.
Yeah. Send people at the front lines money.
Great point.
Like, in the Second World War, people would house other people in their homes,
Mhm.
the Underground Railroad, people helped each other, we can't do this, but we can give you a sandwich,
Excellent.
on your way. Yeah. Send out the sandwiches. You know what I mean? Do what you can do. You don't have to do the biggest thing. You don't have to cure the whole thing before you act.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing that people have to understand. And you also have to take care of yourself. You have to be happy. Spread joy. If that's what you can do, if you're working with kids and you can spread joy, you spread joy. Have fun. Laugh. Make love. Go out in the woods. Go to the ocean. Ride your bicycle. Really be happy.
Wow, powerful. It is wonderful. What a great way to, I feel like, wrap this up. This has been wonderful. Love it.
Oh, thank you
This
so
better not be
much.
the last time. Where can people find you?
At the 11thhourblog.com.
Fan-freaking-tastic. Who cares about me? It's all about my guests. All right.
Lindsay, thank you for spreading the word. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure.
Great.
Yeah. All right.
It's real life.
Yeah, eventually.
Okay.
Bye.